Welcome to Excellence Through Execution, where ambition meets expertise. Hosted by Jason Weseman, this podcast dives into the world of business, exploring the stories of success and the lessons of failure through engaging discussions. Each episode, Jason brings insights from the forefront of business strategy and leadership. Get ready to discover the keys to business excellence.
Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the Excellence Through Execution podcast. As always, I am your host, Jason Weseman, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Jon Groth, owner of the Groth Law Firm, a personal injury and litigation firm right here in Milwaukee. Jon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
always
very
fun to
excited
talk
to
about
learn. Go ahead.
business and how we got to where we're going, or how we got to where we are and where we're going. So this is fun.
That's what this is all about, how you got here and what made you jump and do your own thing and how that works. So I'm looking forward to learning more about you and your organization. Why don't we just start there? Why don't you kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what you do?
Boy, so personal injury law firm. If you're in Wisconsin, well, anywhere in the nation, you're going to know personal injury law firms by our billboards or TV ads, whether you love them or hate them, right? I mean,
Yep.
if you're anywhere else, it's Morgan and Morgan. If you're in, Chicago or Arizona or Nevada, it's Lerner and Rowe. If you're in Michigan, it's Mike Morris. Some of the big names out there. In Wisconsin, I always say my competitors are Gruber and Hupy and Habish and Nicolay. All those TV ads you see. Now there's a lot more internet ads. So Top Dog Law, the guy from Pennsylvania, has run ads in Wisconsin. But long story short, that's what we do. We're a personal injury law firm. We've been around since March 1st of 2010.
Okay.
I left the different firm here in Milwaukee and started my firm out of my basement, really. I was looking at the cement blocks on an IKEA desk with my Dell tower computer, not a laptop, tower computer. Maybe I think it was a tube screen. And my dog is running overhead. My kids are running overhead, and I'm trying to talk like a professional with clients to show them that that perception is reality, that I could talk like a professional because I was a professional in a professional setting when I was really a professional in my basement. So, yeah.
That's where all great things started, in basements or garages.
Yeah, well, exactly. Basements or garages. Yeah. Lots of garage entrepreneurs out there. Yeah. And then we just expanded, and luckily we got bigger and bigger, and now we're uh, we had the luck of joining and purchasing a different law firm a couple of years ago, and took in their practice and kind of diversified what we're doing. And their staff came on board, their attorneys came on board, and now we have approximately 6 attorneys with staff that are here, and we have some VAs who are overseas, and staff that are remote in other areas of the country and things like that. So yeah, it's been a wild ride,
Yeah.
going from just me to now 30 plus.
Wow. What does the firm that you acquired, what is their focus?
It's still personal injury, but they had a very unique practice where, and this is before COVID, vaccine injuries.
Wow.
There's this whole niche in the personal injury world for really it's mostly flu vaccines. So if you get a flu vaccine, there's a fund that was funded in the 1980s approximately, to because the government wanted to figure out how they could encourage people to get vaccines and yet encourage manufacturers to manufacture vaccines. And they didn't want to have the manufacturers afraid of trial lawyers putting them out of business. So they created this fund, and this fund is it's funded by about 75 cents of every vaccine goes into this fund, and now the fund has billions of dollars in it. And the DOJ and the U.S. Court of Federal Claims are the ones that can administer the money through this process. And the number of people who are injured because of vaccines is very, very small, right? But
Sure.
the number of people who receive vaccines are millions upon millions, tens of millions. So the percentage is 1% of the people, let's say, still you have a lot of people who are injured. So,
Yeah.
and the only court that can hear these cases are the only court is in Washington, D.C. It's the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. So we have 3 attorneys at our firm that are licensed before that court and can handle those claims. So yeah, it's something that we
Interesting.
can handle cases all across the world. People, if you got a vaccine in a military base in Germany, it's still legit. You can come and hire us, and we can fight for you before the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. If you were in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, you could do the same thing.
Interesting. Very interesting. And then did anything come out of COVID? Is there a COVID approximate same thing?
We're waiting for the government to approve that, and the government may not be the fastest snail in the race. So there are bills out there that are being deliberated. They'll probably talk to they're literally blue in the face,
Sure.
and then hopefully they'll find some resolution and pass it. The president will sign it, and it'll become a law that you can get these COVID vaccines into the system. Right now, they're not in the system. They're under this emergency kind of act that protects them, really. So they're you can get compensation for COVID vaccine injuries, but it's much more difficult. There's a lot of barriers to entry.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, hopefully that comes, because I'm sure there's some people waiting to
Oh
to
my gosh.
investigate that.
We got so many phone calls. It was people who, and I think that they're legit injuries.
Sure.
It's just a matter of that they really couldn't do anything because no one knew what to do and who to go to. And now we just have lists of people that when the law gets passed, we'll reach out to them and say, hey, maybe you have time, but there's also statutes of limitations, so
Yeah,
you only have a certain number of years that you can file a lawsuit. So yeah, that's a frustrating part of my job.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm waiting for the government. I'm sure they're not they're on their own schedule, right?
Yes, exactly. Unless you have to pay them something, then it's I
Of
want our
course.
money today.
Yesterday.
We need to get paid yesterday. Yes, and now it's a fine, it's a fee or whatever else, the penalty.
It's an
Anyway,
interest, and there
yeah,
we go.
yeah.
Well, cool. That's awesome that you've grown that much. That's impressive. 14 years. What inspired you to start your own thing? So you're working for a different firm, you're working for a firm, you're doing well. What was the initial spark that said, you know what, I want to make my own firm and make the jump?
Boy, the really it was uh sorry, there's a lawyer who has said that he can tell whether you're going to succeed and be a successful attorney if when you were a kid or a teenager you had a newspaper out or something like that,
Hmm.
because you're kind of an entrepreneur, and when this attorney interviews people, he asks, what did you do as a kid? um, I wasn't a newspaper wrote I wasn't a newspaper boy. I raised hamsters. That's kind of weird to say, but I bred hamsters and sold them for $5 a baby hamster. So I actually made money off of my
There you
hamster
go.
breeding business. So I think I always had that kind of thought process, that spark, I guess you'll say, or whatever, where I was always looking to how can I get better, competitive in that degree or in that regard. So when I worked at this other firm, I um, started my own website. I went to my classmates, went to others selling my service as in essence, and I looked at it as my own practice within their practice. And how would I sell Jon Groth to colleagues who didn't do personal injury? I would sell my expertise to others. They would hire the firm, but they would get to the firm through me, and with that, then the argument was I was a rainmaker. That's what
Mm-hmm.
the movie and the book and all that, being a
Yep.
rainmaker in the law is important. So I was a rainmaker, bringing in business. And then finally, it's like, well, okay, I can see the history of what I've brought in over the past few years, and I know what I'm getting paid. So I just run the numbers, and it's like, well, A plus B should equal C, but it equals C, minus or
Yeah.
C minus X number of dollars, so it should be that. It's not. And I approached my boss at the time and said, we need to talk about the numbers. And I was I guess uh, I was at ease because it just didn't make any sense. It was kind of an easy decision.
Sure.
And luckily my wife had faith in me, and we jumped ship, and the rest is history. So
Mm,
what made me think about it, to answer your question in a shorter fashion, is I always had that entrepreneurial kind of spirit, a little bit, and just running the numbers. Look at, have a business plan, run the numbers, look at advisors, talk to the people you trust, and a good accountant, and understand that you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a paper route. Delivered the Des Moines Register.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, in Waterloo, Iowa. So, and
And
then
look at that. See?
here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you've been running Growth Law for 14 years. What are some of the common misconceptions that people have about running a business, about being a business owner?
Man, misconceptions. I think there's a lot
Besides
of
the fact that you're a
misconceptions.
millionaire and
Yeah.
everybody, because you're
Oh
the
my
owner,
God.
you're a
Yeah,
millionaire.
you're the owner. Um, there'll be days when I'm at the office putting toilet paper rolls in the toilet, right? I mean, so
Somebody has to.
it's not all glamorous, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's or running to the store to get well, I mean, we were out of Kleenex, just those kind of things. It was just a little things that, if the buck stops with you,
Yep.
there's certainly, you have a plan and you have a procedure, and for example, your office manager should do X, Y, and Z. But if for some reason the office manager is on vacation, which they should do, it's important to be on vacation, and there's, again, something wasn't planned, and then you have that where it's a kind of an emergency, right? So you have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the biggest misconception, is what's the what you have to do, and what's your responsibility, because it really is all your responsibility. So how can you delegate, and what's the most important thing delegating to get to somebody else, so you can then trust that somebody else is going to do it, and having that plan. And that's been the most difficult thing for me, is delegating and trusting. You know, set it and forget it, like Ron Popeil used to say.
Hmm.
Can you truly set it and forget it, and trust that somebody else is going to do it?
Yeah. So delegation is critical. How do you decide as a business owner what can I delegate and what what's important enough that I have to do it versus what can I delegate to others? Like how do you make that judgment call?
Boy, I I I say attorneys should do attorneys work, paralegals should do paralegals work, case managers should do case manager work. Those kind of things. Is it something where um, uh, somebody else can do it at 80% or so of perfect, or 80% or so on the mark? Then let them do it, because it's probably not worth my time.
Hmm.
Um, and we have, luckily I have a really good kind of leadership team here, that we have meetings. We're on the EOS system. Is it Gino Wickman, the entrepreneurial operating system?
Yep.
So we're on that. We have our EOS meeting every Monday, and luckily I have my team that we go through and um, run our hour and a half EOS weekly meeting, talking about what needs to get done by whom, and who is the best person to take on that responsibility, how it's going to be communicated, and um, and really setting that in writing for everybody to understand. So how do I do it? I think it goes back to, um, can I do it? Um, yes, but can somebody else do it as well, or almost as well as me? Then I think there's other things that I can do that are um, nobody else can do, right? There
Hmm.
are certain things, like only attorneys can appear in court. So I can't delegate that. I mean, that's where attorneys should do attorney work.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you've been running the business for 14 years. How do you maintain a work-life balance? You talked about people need to take vacations, and they do. I just got back from 2 weeks in Greece with my family, so it was beautiful. How do you maintain that work-life balance as a business owner?
Man, I wish I knew how to do it.
Hmm.
Uh, I, I think it's getting easier now that um, we're at the point where we went through a change in the past number of years because we just got too busy, and it was
Yeah.
just it was a good thing. But then our shift has recently been to overhire and having um, set meetings and responsibilities by key staff that makes, I guess, the world of difference. And having meetings in place or responsibilities in place that everybody knows what they have to do in writing or on video. So then I don't have to be the one that has to come in on a Tuesday to say what happened because they know they're checking these boxes and these are their responsibilities that have to get or have to get done, the jobs that have to get performed or completed. So, like I was gone, we were up north last week. I was gone for about a week, and I'll be gone all next week in in Ohio. And I can trust that, um, with the meeting schedule we have in place, they're all short meetings, but
Hmm.
we have these, rocks that are being completed or these tasks that are being completed. I think that's important. We also have a case management system that we can keep really track of people's tasks. So they can even keep track, or they should keep track of what they're accomplishing in a week, which I think is important that you know that you're always moving forward. You're just not stagnant. You do feel the sense of accomplishment. And as people feel the sense of accomplishment and they're moving forward to the same goal, that helps me to be able to step away and know that these are moving forward. So I don't have to be the one that's maybe harping on them to move them forward. They are taking that personal responsibility.
Sure. Yeah. We're kind of talking about the past there. What about the future? Can you offer us a glimpse into some of the future plans for Growth Law?
Um, well, we are uh, preparing for the change in the legal world. I mean, right now, only law firms can be, or only lawyers can own law firms. In the future, what we're seeing is um, in other states like Colorado and Utah and Arizona that non-lawyers are are able to own law firms. So
Hmm.
you're talking about like hedge fund money getting into law firms. You know, that's going to be a huge change. It's kind of like with what's that dental business that got bought by a bunch of hedge funds, or
Yeah.
locally in Milwaukee, there was the Orthopedic Associates, or one of the orthopedic hospitals got bought by hedge funds. When you have hedge funds coming into those specialized professional businesses, things change kind of drastically. And
Sure.
that's what we're looking at in the future. So how do we either protect ourselves or prepare ourselves for that eventuality. So that's what we're looking for. It's not going to be this year or next year, but maybe 5, 10 years from now. And I'm young enough that I assume I'm going to be working 5 or 10 years from now. So I got to prepare
Let's hope.
for that eventuality. Yeah, yeah. Let's hope.
What type of changes is that going to bring about to the law business?
I think it's going to be um, uh, I, do you remember Bain Capital Management and the big talk about Mitt Romney going back to politics? Where I'm in Milwaukee, so the RNC
Yep.
is next week. But Mitt Romney was the Bain guy, right? And there was the big talk about that, how he came in, took over businesses, sold them, and such. Or McKinsey, that's been in the news recently. So
Hmm.
it's going to be that kind of analysis, a very um, um, higher value on numbers
Numbers
and
driven.
understanding your numbers. Yeah, numbers driven. I think that's going to be a big difference. You're not going to have the the general practice lawyer that kind of dabbles in personal injury. You're going to have very specialized personal injury lawyers, or the same thing with criminal law or probate or other things where you're going to have, riches are in the niches. So you're going to have attorneys who are specializing and then be part of maybe a national firm that specializes in X, Y, and Z, kind of like, the franchisation of the nation. You'll have like Chick-fil-A, or not, well, I guess more Portillo's, right? Portillo's went from local in Chicago to nationwide
Yep.
as the hedge fund bought them. The same kind of thing. It'll be, Groth Law Firm will be the personal injury firm in every state in the nation, or that kind of um, expansion in the national brand. We're kind of seeing it now where there's firms like Morgan and Morgan is in almost every single state. But that's a person, it's just a family. Morgan and Morgan owns it. John Morgan. Shanera is a lawyer down in Alabama, and he's expanding throughout the nation. So you have those kind of firms that are doing that, I think, in preparation that they will maybe eventually sell to a hedge fund,
Mm.
and they'll have the brand. It's Shanera. So just call Shanera, and they're wherever they are, and they will then purchase other law firms, or just like an Amoeba or like the Borg in Star Trek, just eventually take over every other law firm.
Yeah. Morgan and Morgan sponsors my favorite podcast. Pardon my take.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yes. Yes, they
Yeah.
are. I was down in Florida a couple months ago, and they're all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, are you you're expanding? Are you hiring? Is your firm growing?
Yeah, I was set in 3 different interviews yesterday, one today. I think the mantra this year is always hiring. We hired a full-time HR director, so that's our goal, is to continue to find the right people for the right positions. So
What?
yes, the answer is yes. We're
Yeah.
always hiring. I think you just can't go wrong. I mean, that's the most important part of our world. We're in a service industry. AI is not going to do it.
No.
Talking to humans, you have to have good people who are compassionate, who understand. And that's something that I don't care if we are fully staffed. There's always room for one more if it's a really good person.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people are your only true competitive advantage. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
well, that's awesome, man. Well, this has been great. Let's end on this. Take yourself back 14 years, and you're about to make the jump. What advice would you offer to aspiring entrepreneurs that are thinking about doing their own thing?
The Well, this is cliche, but the best time to plant a tree is what, 20 years ago or 100 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yep.
You just got to do it. I mean, I remember um, deciding I was going to do it on X day, and then was like, well, did I crunch those numbers right? Are you sure I got those? Maybe. So let's think about it. And then 3 months later, I finally did it. So you just have to get up the courage and really do it. Have faith in yourself. If you ran the numbers correctly, if you were thorough in in your process, and you believe in yourself, and you have a good support system, which certainly my wife was the best, you can certainly do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because you have to. There's no perfect time to do it. It's never the right time, but it's never the wrong time. It's always, it's about having kids and about getting married. You just got to do it, and
Hmm.
it'll all work out.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes a while to figure it out, but it'll all work out. Yes.
It might not work out exactly how you thought, but it's going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I
Well,
I agree.
well, John, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for your time, and it was great meeting you and learning more about your journey.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It was a pleasure.
Well, I'll send out all your LinkedIn and your websites in the bio, and that wraps up this episode of Excellence Through Execution. Thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.